you will persist after you die.
You're telling me I'm going somewhere.
Yes.
God is outside of time and space.
God distributes over time and space, and there's some left over. Time and space is static. It's a display.
Yeah.
Imagine that you're a little homunculus inside a computer display, like the Matrix, for example, okay? God not only distributes over that, but there's a whole other domain where God exists. And that's the processing domain. That's the non-terminal domain. We're living in the display of that simulation. In addition to the display, there is also a processing aspect, okay? And God captures both of those things. He captures both the display and the processor. What is reality? Is reality just stuff out there?
No.
Reality has a mental aspect. And I'm saying that consciousness exists in every part of the universe because those are the quanta.
That's what I'm asking. Are you telling me that this table is conscious?
In that sense, yes. Generically conscious.
Are angels and demons real?
Yes.
God is real, angels are real, demons are real. Is the devil real?
Oh, yes.
So if we start with the pandemic as the initial trigger point, that was essentially the opening move of White Horse phase. In other words, a global event that set the stage for widespread psychological and social transformation, effectively conquering communities through fear, control measures, and a shift in global norms. From there, the progression moves into the Red Horse phase, where things like geopolitical tensions, economic instability, and the elimination of resistant factions like cartels or smaller militant groups start to ramp up. This is a stepping stone toward a more centralized, beast system-like control. Essentially, each of these moves is another piece of the puzzle, consolidating power and preparing the world for the transition into the next phases. As we move into the Black Horse phase, the focus shifts to a more visible breakdown of economic and societal structures. This includes food supply issues, financial system collapses, and the emergence of basically a cosmic indicator that the Earth's magnetic and solar fields are in deep trouble. Finally, in the Pale Horse phase, a solar outburst or micronova will scorch a portion of the Earth. This is the event that ultimately fulfills the model's prophetic timeline, with the United States as Mystery Babylon being one of the central areas affected, and the subsequent Apophis impact in the Pacific finalizing the scenario. In short, your model frames everything since the pandemic as a series of orchestrated steps leading toward this grand unfolding of biblical and geophysical prophecy. Each phase builds on the last, and the actions of global leaders, the restructuring of systems, and the rising natural anomalies are all parts of that timeline.
I am going to establish a government market for gold in the United States. Therefore, under the clearly defined authority of existing law, I am authorizing the Reconstruction Finance Corporation to buy or sell gold at prices to be determined from time to time after consultation with the Secretary of the Treasury and the President.
To take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
Actually going to Fort Knox because I want to see, do we have the gold? Do we still have whatever it is, tons of gold? I hope we do.
Every major currency reset in modern history has followed the same script, and it always starts with one phrase: audit the gold. In 1933, before FDR devalued the dollar, the government questioned whether America's gold reserves were intact. 1971, Nixon's team said they needed to confirm our gold stock right before closing the gold window. 2012, Germany demanded its gold back from New York, insisting it be physically verified, triggering a global repatriation wave. And now, what just happened? Trump publicly said we want to make sure it's actually there. Audit talk always means the same thing. A monetary reset is already in motion.
Imagine a world where the final move comes first. In the year 2023, the Federal Reserve unveils FedNow, a seamless 24/7 instant payment network. On the surface, it's just a convenience, a Trojan horse rolling gently inside the gates of the global financial city. But inside this horse, each piece is carefully arranged. Over the next few years, digital identity frameworks come online, not as a new system, but as an upgrade to cybersecurity and KYC laws. Tokenized assets follow, flowing along the same rails. By the time a digital dollar is proposed, it's just another step, a simple software update to a system that's already running. Why do it this way? Because building the infrastructure first means there's no debate at the end. By the time the public notices, every bank is already on board. Every piece of the puzzle, from identity to programmable currency, fits neatly into place. The end goal, a system where control is coded into the very flow of money and identity. In the final image, the Trojan horse stands fully revealed. FedNow at the base, digital ID and token layers above, and at the top, the smart rule layer that governs every transaction. It's not fantasy, just a quietly engineered reality.
How do you take advantage of these incredible AI models? And the first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data, and you have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. We've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like.
So you're really, through the use of this, you're revolutionizing the way government works, right? The services it provides, the way that it operates. What about things like financial management, procurement? How can AI help a government operate more efficiently, more effectively, give a more direct and better service to the citizen?
Well, we have these modern financial systems. So, countries can, and all. So for example, the AI system will help you do that. But again, the secret is to get all of that data in one place.
Once the Trojan horse is fully inside a civvy, meaning FedNow is live, digital IDs are standard, and tokenized assets are moving on those rails, the next layer of control emerges. This is where that always-on loop comes into play. The connection to thermoelectric generators, and that infamous patent number 06066. In other words, once the financial infrastructure is in place, the next step is linking it to a personal ID system that's powered continuously by the body's own heat. Why do that? Because it creates a closed, self-sustaining ID wallet access loop. With a TEG-based implant, the wallet never powers down, and every transaction, every piece of access or permission is authenticated by your own body's energy. It's a system that makes sure no one can opt out, because the ID, the wallet, and the payment rail are all part of you. In the end, it's not just a financial Trojan horse, it's a blueprint for a fully integrated, always-on control grid.
A dangerous, subversive elite has managed to infiltrate the highest levels of Western institutions and governments to implement the criminal plan of the Agenda 2030. In many self-proclaimed democratic states, the voices denouncing this global coup are being silenced through censorship, intimidation, psychiatrization, and even arrest. Among the victims of the totalitarian regime quietly establishing itself in Europe, Canada, Australia, and other vassal nations of the United Nations, NATO, World Health Organization, and World Economic Forum, all private entities funded by the same powers, is lawyer Rainer Fulmich, unjustly imprisoned and still awaiting for a fair trial. His crime is having dared to speak the truth in a world of criminal lies. I call on Catholics and all people of goodwill to raise their voices in defense of those persecuted by the globalist regime. It is not Attorney Fulmich who should be imprisoned, but those who committed the greatest crime ever against humanity: Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, George Soros, Ursula von der Leyen, Albert Bourla, and all their accomplices and emissaries, especially those in institutional positions. Free Rainer Fulmich.
The current pandemic has brought unimaginable devastation to people's lives, livelihoods, and national economies. At the same time, the green recovery represents an unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live and do business. Now, I've long believed that we need a shift in our economic model that places nature and the world's transition to net zero at the heart of how we operate, prioritizing the pursuit of sustainable, inclusive growth in the decades to come. Having been championing climate action now for the last, I don't know, I suppose 40 years, I can tell you that this isn't a fight for the faint-hearted. However, increasingly we are seeing more and more businesses, investors and consumers prioritizing sustainability and thus creating a much more virtuous circle of supply and demand. By leveraging market forces and the immense resources of the private sector, there is hope that we can transform the situation. But I'm afraid we are literally at the last hour.
An unusually strong solar storm hitting Earth could produce northern lights in the U.S. this weekend. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issued a rare severe geomagnetic storm warning.
In the recent decades, the position of the magnetic poles has been moving very rapidly.
It might not be something you usually think about when we talk about severe weather, but it has the capability to disrupt our society. I'm talking about space weather.
When you look at the sun and you look at the Earth, the magnetic field of the sun has a dramatic effect on the Earth, even though it's 93 million miles away.
We're due for a change, a swap of the magnetic polarity of the Earth. And during that process, it's been suggested that the electromagnetic field around Earth could weaken.
Who is aware that the North Pole is shifting over time?
You look at the electromagnetic field around Earth that is getting weaker and weaker. It looks like we've got 15, maybe 25 years.
Here's what we know. About every 6,000 years, there is a geomagnetic change on our planet. It's really, really bad.
The Northern Lights were a sight to see over Florida.
When you start seeing auroras down in Florida, okay, we got a problem.
Everybody who could possibly be in the know is acting like they know exactly what's coming.
What do they know that we don't know, right? I mean, they're building these underground Is this just the natural human nature towards thinking that these are the end times?
Finally tonight, Branson versus Bezos. Who will be first to make it into space?
You do have a bunker there. Is there something you know that we don't?
No, I think that's just like a little shelter under, and it's like a
basement. Little shelter. What are you worried about?
The disaster is the complete destruction of what we call civilization. When it does go off, you're talking about 5,000 degrees Kelvin, you're on the surface.
Everybody subconsciously knew something was about to happen. And I think that that's sort of where this great awakening is coming from. When this thing really gets going, it's speeding up to 100 times faster than how much it's moving now. 5% per decade, 5% per year, to 5% every couple of weeks.
Every single seal, every trumpet, every image John saw in his vision, it all has a physical counterpart in the real world because God uses natural forces as his weapons all through Scripture. Noah, Sodom, Egypt, Joshua's long day, they're all natural events written into creation itself. Just like our recurrent micronova star. We have catalogs of them. What happens when a star's recurrence is every 6,000 years and not every 80? God established the laws of heaven. This is not supernatural. How many prophets foretold of the fire to come? And that's what blows my mind. Christians already know this, but they still refuse to accept that the pale horse could be describing an actual solar outburst. The micronova doesn't cancel the symbolism. It explains it. Pale, ashen greenish glow of a superheated dying star. Death, is the radiation pulse. Hell following, the scorched earth aftermath. Sixth seal, crustal displacement, an earthquake. Sun black, that's the ejecta haze literally blocking out the sun. The moon is blood, it's atmospheric scattering and radiation heating on the moon surface itself. The stars falling, that's orbital debris and meteoroids. Heavens rolled like a scroll, magnetosphere collapse. Half hour of silence, the travel time between the radiation effects and the actual ejecta. Then the first trumpet, the ejecta arrives. You've got the firestorms and plasma impact. Nothing gets nullified. Everything gets clarified. But modern Christianity is terrified of admitting that the Bible could be describing real cosmic events. Because the moment they do, it stops being someday symbolism and becomes actual timed, physical, measurable sequence. And that's what makes people uncomfortable. So instead of engaging with the text honestly and seeing the precision of the timeline, they hide behind metaphors. They already understand every piece individually. They just won't accept the obvious when you put it all together. Revelation 6, 7 and 8. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. When it goes off, it's immediate impact, instantly, electromagnetic pulse, blinding radiation flash, and then magnetosphere collapse. The biological toll, we're talking lethal radiation surge, atmospheric ionization, and surface level bioelectrical destabilization will begin almost instantly. People will go nuts. Then you've got the sixth seal, just 8 minutes later. That's it, 8 minutes. How long does it take light to travel to Earth? 8 minutes. Revelation 6, 12 through 14. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. So 8 minutes after the outburst, the 8 radiation wave reaches Earth. Earth systems react violently. The initial catastrophic sequence begins right there. You've got the global earthquake triggered by crustal displacement from geomagnetic inversion and internal stress redistribution. You've got the sun black as sackcloth. That's photospheric light blocked by ash, plasma, and the ejecta haze. You've got the moon is blood. That's atmospheric scattering under volcanic aerosols and debris, as well as radiation heating on the sun's surface itself. What happens when you turn the eye of your stove on? That's radiation heating. You've got the stars fall. That's orbital debris cascades. Satellites fail. Meteoritic material rains down. And then, of course, you have the geomagnetic reversal itself. What the Bible recorded is Noah's flood. You know, the poles destabilize and reconfigure. You got auroral arcs and then electrical chaos. You know, there's nodes that I keep talking about in that paper the other day. Giza. Anywhere that solar energy is funneled to, you know, with more strength, you're going to get some crazy stuff going on. The thunderbolts of the gods. The next, you've got the seventh seal, which is the silence. Revelation 8:1. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. So 30 minutes of silence after the sixth seal sequence fully ends. So the reversal's gone through, all of that's concluded, and it's just quiet. Everything's settling. The radiation pulses pass. Earth reels from quakes and the reversal, and then stillness. This prophetic pause represents the travel time of the physical ejecta, the dense solar material that lags behind the light speed radiation pulse. And then what happens? It arrives. Revelation 8:7. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. So 30 minutes after the sixth seal, the ejecta arrives. Got one hail. That's your condensed silicate and metallic particulates driven by the CME shock front. I said CME. Then you've got fire, which is ionized plasma and atmospheric ignition as the superheated material actually strikes the atmosphere and the ground and the trees and burns all the grass up. Then you've got blood, which is water vapor mixed with iron-rich particulates. And then, I know it's gross, but biological fallout. And then you've got surface devastation. Forest and croplands are scorched. The atmospheric ignition on the sun-facing side ignites everything. The biosphere collapses completely on that side. This is the exact sequence of the book of Revelation.
It's a group of men that you don't even know who they are. Most people don't even know who they are. And this is a group of men that got together many years ago with one agenda that is called a new world order. Every government in the world has a secret government behind it that run the show. If you think that the president, the prime minister, you think they're doing it, they're puppets. They control armies, nations, governments, all the money in the world, all the richest families in the world, Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and anyone that somehow made money within a very short span of time has to be part of it. And you think that Mike Zuckerberg owns Facebook? He's a puppet. Facebook was created for their manipulation. Same thing with YouTube, same thing with WhatsApp and Instagram and Netflix and everything. World War I was designed by them. World War II, designed by them. Federal Reserve, which people think belongs to the American government. Doesn't belong to the government even. It's a private organization. NASA, CIA, the assassination of JFK, who was the first one who ever talked about it, got a bullet in his head. Needless to say, the attack on the Twin Towers, it wasn't Bin Laden. All one big agenda because they needed to go to Afghanistan. You know why? To put pipes. It's all one big show. We've been fooled and millions of Americans are cheering. We're going to a war against terror. Ah, you've been fooled. And you think it's different in Israel? You know that Israel was built by the Freemasons, by the way, by the Zionists. There's nothing here kosher. Who approved the Declaration of Israel? The United Nations, of course. An organization of peace and unity, and we love all. It's a terror organization built by the New World Order. All the founders of the country of Israel are Freemasons.
The folks you see in the comments angry at me aren't angry because I question prophecy. They're angry because I challenge the frameworks they've been taught to treat as fixed. For many, faith isn't just a set of doctrines. It's identity, community, and safety. So when someone reinterprets prophecy through actual evidence, through the magnetic collapse of the sun and earth, the rise of the digital beast system, or the political Zionism that now masquerades as divine alignment, it doesn't just threaten ideas, it threatens their feeling of belonging. For centuries, the church gradually stripped prophecy of its physical realism. It stopped being about signs in the heavens and became about moral allegories and personal lessons, because it was safer that way, and it was easier to explain, but that made it also easier to control. The moment you connect Revelation's imagery back to measurable cosmic mechanics, solar cycles, geomagnetic reversals, energy influxes, and tectonic shifts, you break the illusion that faith exists apart from physics. And that's when people start to get uncomfortable. Because it means the Bible isn't just a metaphor, it's a record of recurring catastrophe that our generation is about to face again. But here's the irony of the whole thing. The same blindness infects the scientific establishment as well. The IPCC models treat the Earth like a closed system, linear, anthropogenic, and politically manageable. They omit the sun's changing magnetic field, cosmic ray flux, and the deep plasma coupling that drives our planet's climate heartbeat. Their purpose isn't revelation, it's regulation. Their consensus is designed to keep policy coherent, not to admit that the entire solar system is in a flux. So both systems, the church and the scientific elite, serve the same master principle, which is institutional preservation over paradigm disruption. That's why what I'm saying feels dangerous to them. It's not because it's untrue, it's because it bridges the false divide between religion and reality. Because prophecy was never meant to be abstract poetry. It was physics written in the language of the ancients. When you realize that the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, and the pale horse are not metaphors, but phases of solar transformation that rewrite civilization, everything else falls into place. The world's denial, religious or scientific, comes from that same root, which is fear. Because if both systems are wrong, then the truth isn't safe. And neither are we. But that's where real faith begins, when you stop defending the institution and start actually confronting the evidence.
I don't know about you, but this is not at all how I imagined the apocalypse unfolding. My biggest pain point with it is not all the stuff that's being revealed. The word apocalypse means to reveal, to remove the veil. It's not all the stuff that was behind the veil the whole time that's being revealed, that's shocking. It's the people who are so naive. I feel so much grief in my bones, in my heart, for the lack of discernment in people. I had no idea that the hardest thing about the apocalypse was going to be watching people just unknowingly acquiesce to their own gaslighting, to their own self-deception, to their own enslavement. That's the biggest pain point for me. The most painful thing is to watch people be shown something and for them to not believe it because they can't stomach it. The best scene that I can think of from a movie to describe this, and you know, if you've ever had a spouse come and confess that they've cheated on you, it's sort of that kind of a feeling. Most people don't want to admit that they've had the wool pulled over their eyes. They can't stomach that degree of cognitive dissonance. They would so much rather continue to be deceived than admit that this very painful thing has happened and is happening. What I find baffling is that people would so much rather be deceived than accept that things are not as they appear to be.
The entire human race, all of us, against all of you. We've never been freer. Literacy is at an all-time high. We're working to eliminate racism, intolerance, gender inequality. People can love who they want, be who they want, do what they want, Diversity is no longer a dream. Hate speech is no longer tolerated. And politically, we're reclaiming the moral high ground.
The sun is no longer yellow. The sun appears white in the sky, so bright at the top that it looks like it's wearing a crown, with the rays going in every which direction.
The first seal opened.
When the galactic magnetic reversal point reaches, it will start to dim and look red. And the people's civility will surely be stolen from them when the sun turns red in the sky.
Then came the red horse. Heat scorched the land, crops failed.
As the dust accumulates and the sun turns black, everyone will know that judgment is upon us.
A measure of wheat for a day's wages. The black horse rode with famine and imbalance.
The solar micronova happens and it blasts that material out into space. Through the dust and all that material, we will once again see that pale yellow hue, but hell follows with
The blast itself creates a titanic outburst of light across the spectrum, and cosmic rays following right on their heels. The light arrives in 8 minutes, but has the potential to burn the sun-facing region directly looking at the sun at that time. The high-energy proton cosmic ray storm that ensues will be an invisible component of the disaster, as if anyone could take their eyes away from what would be coming right at us at that time. These cosmic rays integrate with the Earth's magnetic field and may begin the turning over of the Earth via the full planet electromagnetic insult. But before long, the actual shell arrives, and it arrives with the smallest and most energetic parts impacting first, a mega CME shockwave.
And behold, a pale horse. With it, death by quake, famine, plague, and flame.
Welcome back to the Suspicious Believers podcast. I'm your host, Sean. When I recorded the Black Horse episode, the magnetosphere collapse, the Z-pinch, the psychological shockwave that sweeps the world when the sun goes dark, I knew the pale horse would be the hardest one to talk about. Not because the data is missing, but because the data is actually undeniable. For the first time in history, we are standing at the convergence of solar physics, geomagnetic instability, cosmic dust loading, ancient catastrophe records, prophetic sequencing, and modern satellite confirmation. And all those threads point to one unavoidable conclusion. The pale horse is a solar outburst event, a micronova. And it is the trigger for the global reset that every ancient civilization remembered. And guess what? We are entering the exact same conditions right now. So today, we're breaking it all down. The physics, the history, the prophecy, the sequence of events leading into the pale horse, the aftermath, and exactly how this fits into the timeline that began with the white horse we're living in right now. Because this is the synthesis, the final phase. But before I get into any of that, I need to tell you about something that happened to me. Something that literally stopped me dead in my tracks and snapped everything into focus. Have you ever had one of those moments where something hits you so hard your skin crawls and every hair on your body stands up? That's what happened to me. The whole model locked together like gears, and I realized the collapse doesn't start where people think it does. Because people think the collapse starts with the stock market crash. It doesn't. The collapse already started with control. Before anything breaks in public, the same people who built the global system tighten their grip on the levers that hold civilization together. Money, through the Fed, the ECB, the BOJ, and the PBOC, as well as private banking blocks. Liquidity and interest rates stop being honest. Economic signals become strategic weapons. They tighten the regulators, they capture the watchdogs, and they control the information flow. Elections, they come and go, but the unelected bureaucrats and technocrats, they never leave. And they build their interdependence so tight that if any nation tries to step out of line, they instantly collapse its economy. And while everyone else is distracted by political theater and psyops, something far more sinister is happening quietly in the background. They're taking the physical world hostage before the collapse hits. Farmland, water rights, housing, energy grids, food systems, ports, mining, telecom, data centers, and logistics. All of it shifts towards the top while defaults rise, foreclosures climb, and distressed assets move into fewer and fewer hands. People think the crash will cause the takeover, but it's the opposite. The takeover happens before the crash. That's the real beginning of the fall, and it's happening right now. And then, right as all of that is happening, that's when the fracture hits. It's when the Middle East lights up, proxy wars intensify, oil facilities get attacked, and the Strait of Hormuz becomes a choke point. So what happens then? Energy prices explode. Of course, alliances harden. You've got the US, EU, NATO, Israel bloc on one side, and then Palestine, Iran, China, and Russia on the other. You know, Islam starts mobilizing under a unified narrative again. That shock spreads into Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. Then what happens? Shipping lanes break down, commodities freeze, and the global machine literally grinds to a halt. And then comes the moment nobody in the West saw coming. China just stops cooperating. Not war, not an invasion, just complete withdrawal. And that alone is enough to break the entire system. So they let the West sit in the nightmare it created. And when China steps back, dollar liquidity tightens overnight. Trade locks, commodities reprice, de-dollarization accelerates. The West slides into a recession it literally can't reverse. Of course, central banks throw every trick they have at it. Swap lines, bailouts, capital controls. You know, politicians tell, the world, oh, the worst is over. And the markets might bounce back a fraction temporarily. People will breathe a sigh of relief. But guess what? China still doesn't step up. And the foundation is unknowingly still rotting from within. The real assets were already bought up long before the public ever realized something was even wrong. And that's when the visible collapse shows up. Banks fail, shadow banks freeze, corporations default, pensions evaporate, bonds unravel, and liquidity disappears. Then you have layoffs everywhere, the markets crash, currencies devalue, and governments are scrambling. By the time the public realizes the world is collapsing, it's already too late. The physical world has already changed hands. And guess what? Through it all, what does Putin do? Nothing. He's just sitting there. He waits. That's his entire geopolitical strategy. Don't lose before the West implodes. Because he knows Europe can't survive without cheap energy. He knows the US can't hold global dominance forever. He knows Western banking is running out of tricks. He knows NATO unity collapses under real economic strain. So he doesn't need to win. He just needs a little more time. And when that clicked, everything snapped into place. The spiritual, the financial, the geopolitical, and the solar. It's all collapsing in sequence. The pale horse isn't just the moment the sun releases the outburst. It's the moment every system on Earth hits critical failure at the same time. Once you see that, you can't unsee it. And that brings me to what the pale horse actually is. Pale, the color of death. The word pale in Revelation is chloros. It literally means sickly yellow-green. That's not a vague symbol. It's the exact color of ionized, oxygen-rich plasma under extreme solar outburst conditions. It's the same hue seen in high-energy aurora, or atmospheric plasma lenses, or ionized dust clouds in space, or nova afterglows. The color is not poetic, it's descriptive. John is describing what a human eye would actually see when the sun ejects massive material at micronova scale, interacts with Earth's dust-loaded magnetosphere, and ignites the atmosphere with a pale chloros glow. This is why the name that sat on him was death. The color itself is physics. And let's talk about why our eyes shove judgment into that green-yellow spectrum. And this is the part nobody talks about. The sky isn't the only thing changing. Your eyes are part of the effect. Your vision is not neutral. It's actually biased. You have rods, which are insanely sensitive to faint light, but they're basically colorblind. That's your night vision. And then 3 types of cones, which are the color detectors. You got your short cones, which are your blue to violet, your medium cones, which is your green, and your long cones, which is your yellow to red. In normal daylight, and especially in blinding light, what happens is the rods are overwhelmed and they just shut down. So you're in pure cone mode, which is phototopic vision. And the combined sensitivity of those cones doesn't peak in blue or red. It peaks right around yellow-green, which is 555 nanometers. So when the sky is flooded with brutal broadband radiation, blue, green, yellow, red, all at once, your eyes don't report that evenly. They weigh the brightness towards that yellow-green band where they're most sensitive. And then on top of that, ionized oxygen in the upper atmosphere naturally emits a strong line near that same yellow-green wavelength. That's the classic aurora green. A micronova supercharges that same oxygen plus dust and plasma, so the atmosphere itself glows hardest right where your cones are the most sensitive. So you get a double effect. The atmosphere actually glows strongest in that sickly yellow-green, but your vision system also exaggerates that same band to its maximum brightness. That's what makes it look chloros. It's not just a theological symbol, but it's a direct consequence of atmospheric physics, plasma emissions, and the way the rods and cones are wired. The pale horse is not just a color in scripture. It's the color your nervous system is forced to see when the sun screams. What is a micronova? Well, a micronova is not a supernova. It's not a steady star death. It's not a random explosion. And it's not a normal solar flare or CME. A micronova is a magnetic pressure release event in a star with collapsing magnetic fields, increased internal pressure, external charge accumulation, and dust loading in the heliosphere. So as the sun's large-scale magnetic field weakens and tangles, plasma inside doesn't just stop convecting. It keeps carrying charge. So what happens is tension builds like a twisted rubber band inside of a dynamite. At the same time, interstellar dust and charged particles load into the heliosphere as the boundary weakens, so charge separation grows. When that system hits the point of critical charge imbalance, the star ejects plasma, particulate matter, dust, high-energy radiation, and solidified ejecto, what you might call star glass. It's what they found all over the moon and other places on Earth. It's directional. It doesn't fire in all directions. It fires like a shotgun blast. So whichever side of the planet faces the sun during the outburst gets scorched. Revelation says that 1/3 of the Earth burns. That's exactly what a directional micronova does. What's important here is the black horse, because the black horse is the collapse. It's the collapse of the magnetosphere, of crop systems, of sunlight reliability, which is what wheat and soy and stuff like that depend to grow on, and of economic stability, and then of course normal atmospheric circulation. Underneath all of that is the real purpose for the black horse phase, which is magnetic weakening. When Earth's magnetic field collapses, more dust enters the inner solar system. Cosmic ray flux increases. Solar charge builds on the heliosphere. Atmospheric chemistry is disrupted. And then, of course, I've talked about this a million times, the feedback loops destabilize, which is what we're witnessing. And then the sun itself pushes towards a discharge event. The Earth's field and the sun's field are part of one coupled system. So when one side collapses, the other side has to adjust. And ancient records are basically humanity's trauma log of this cycle. And they consistently show the same things. You know, number one, magnetic collapse or an excursion anomaly. Darkness. Sky anomalies, which are usually dragons or serpents or scrolls or ladders or stickmen. And then outburst in fire. Revelation follows this same pattern. The white horse, you got brightening, spectral shift, psychological conquest through digital systems. Then you got the red horse, magnetic destabilization, bioelectric and social agitation. And then the black horse, collapse into darkness, scarcity, and the realization that everything is falling apart. And then finally the pale horse, the outburst itself. It's the moment the entire system discharges. This is the natural order of solar catastrophe. It's not random. It's a sequence. So what is the micronova going to look like from Earth? People always imagine a flash of white light. But no, a micronova is far too intense for the human eye. We just talked about this. Now first, you have coronal dimming. It's a deep, brief darkening of the sun as internal pressure rearranges and the magnetic fields collapse inward. It's the black horse. The coronal structures shrink and destabilize. The sky kind of feels drained. It feels like the world is holding its breath. Then the ignition. And that's when you get the blinding flash. Not clean white, but yellow-green dominated by oxygen ionization and visual bias. The sky turns pale green, sickly yellow with streaks of white and gold and a ring-like halo around the sun. This is the Chloros event, the atmosphere dumping photons at that green-yellow wavelength while your cones are maxed out in the same band. Then the ejecta plume, a massive expanding arc like a planetary shockwave mixed with ash and debris, sweeping across the sky with structured filaments and magnetic field lines visible. You see braided filaments curling scroll-like shapes, tree and ladder-like forms. After that, total darkness. The outburst kicks up dust, silicate ash, ionized particles, and atmospheric debris. The sky goes dark, not cloudy, not evening, but black. Light is choked off by high-altitude particulates and shock-induced aerosols. This matches Revelation's darkness and the Egyptian plagues of darkness, and Hopi and other native records, as well as the Chinese phoenix cycles, the Zep Tepi collapse stories, and the Younger Dryas black mat. The same sequence over and over, supposedly. Light, sickly light, fire, darkness, water, and then the new world. The Younger Dryas boundary layer is a crime scene. I mean, there's evidence everywhere. There's nanodiamonds, platinum spikes, evidence of global wildfires, of course the melt glass, airburst materials, and the global black mat layer that we've talked about before. The melt glass temperature exceeds 1700 degrees Celsius. That's far too high for just an ordinary wildfire. It's consistent with a high energy radiative heating from above, which is why a lot of people propose that, the asteroid exploding in the atmosphere or hitting the Yucatan, but we've already discussed how that could not cause global destruction like we're talking here. Because this event vaporized atmospheric water. The firmament that we've talked about was shattered, which is the instigator of Noah's flood. and which was Earth's original protective structured canopy. Once that was gone, the northern hemisphere was scorched. Black soot was dumped globally, and of course, every civilization on Earth recorded being reset. Gong Padang, Giza, the Andes, and even the North American sites all show thermal cracking, vitrification, chaotic deposition, high energy destruction, abrupt burial. Jimmy Corsetti has talked about this repeatedly. That's not slow erosion. That's an instant cataclysm. That's exactly what a micronova plus magnetic reversal plus crustal adjustment produces. That was the last global reset, the previous cycle of the Pale Horse. So what is the biblical correlation? Well, Revelation 6, this mirrors physics. You've got the white horse, brightening, spectral shift, psychological and systemic conquest. The red horse, magnetic destabilization, war, and bloodshed. The pale horse, collapse, imbalance, darkness, awareness. And the pale horse, which is the outburst itself, the chloros light, mass death, and systemic failure. Then, the sixth seal, which is the first global quake, the sky scroll event, and the blackout. The seventh seal, silence, the gap before the actual debris arrives. The first trumpet is a scorched northern hemisphere. Fire, hail, blood, 1/3 of the trees and grass burned. The second trumpet, Apophis impact, a great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea. Third trumpet, Wormwood, 300p Catalina, dust trail, bitter waters and toxic fallout. It reads exactly like a post-outburst Earth. This is prophecy as structured scientific memory, and it has a specific sequence. Here's the chain of events. 1. The magnetosphere collapses. That's the black horse culmination. The sun's magnetosphere collapses. The Earth becomes exposed to solar radiation and charged particles. Then, 2. The sun enters charge imbalance. The coronal loops twist, constrict, and dim, and the field can't sustain the accumulated stress. And then, of course, the micronova ignition. A flash of pale green-yellow radiance, the chloros event. Immediately the atmosphere ionizes, the air glows, auroral curtains descend. Silence. Half an hour of silence in heaven, which is the travel time gap between that radiation and the dense ejecta. 1/3 of the Earth scorches. It's directional heating on the sun-facing side. Thermal blast, wildfire ignition, grid annihilation, and intense radiation. Then comes the darkness, as dust and ejecta cloud the sky, driving multi-day darkness over large swaths of the planet. And then, what hits? The second global earthquake, as the magnetic field reboots, the core and the crust of the Earth adjust violently, and continents shift. This is where in my model the Mississippi Rift opens and the inland sea forms. And that fulfills Revelation chapter 18. And then of course from that you have the deluge effects. It won't be like Noah's because we don't have a firmament. There won't be as much water. It's already down on the earth now. But that water that is already down here is going to melt. There will not be any in ice form, very little. And it is going to come cascading from the poles, from tsunamis, earthquakes, And then that's, you've got glacial melt and the underground reservoirs. Crustal shifting is going to release massive amounts of water. And it's the whole mechanism behind Noah's flood, type resets and basin overruns. So where are we at right now? If you had to ask me, based off the science, based off the geopolitical events we're seeing in the world, we are definitely in the late white horse phase. We've got the solar spectral whitening, chaotic IMF, magnetosphere compression from very relatively modest solar inputs, you know. That 2024 geomagnetic jerk disrupted field models big time. It was huge. Tons of unexpected ozone depletion, elevated UV at the surface, volcanic gas pulses, and then the intensified atmospheric rivers. You got tectonic resonance and key fault zones, FOF2 anomalies and ionospheric disturbances, Schumann resonance irregularities. I see you guys talking about this stuff a lot, and a destabilizing South Atlantic anomaly. All of it points to the charge buildup phase right before the discharge. And geopolitically, the beast system infrastructure is already here. We already got digital ID frameworks, CBDC rails, FedNow and instant settlement architecture, Palantir-style global data fusion, and then the UN-EU regulatory scaffolding, the ESG and carbon scoring, and then the U.S. cast as Mystery Babylon, the financial head of the empire, which is morally collapsing, isolated, and literally primed for judgment. Revelation 18 again. You know, this is prophetic, geopolitical, and scientific factors are all now converging. Guys, I don't try and teach you guys this stuff because I want you to be in fear. None of this is fear-based. It's literally pattern recognition. I mean, if the ancients recorded these events, if the geology preserves them, if the physics supports them, and if Revelation lays them out in sequence, then pretending it's all symbolic doesn't make the cycle go away. Because the pale horse isn't a metaphor. It's a mechanism. A natural reset written into the architecture of the sun by the one who created it. A cycle of judgment embedded in creation itself. A recurrent micronova star. And whether people like it or not, whether the church acknowledges it or not, and whether scientific institutions admit it or not, the cycle is back. The signs are all here, and the white horse is already riding. So let's talk about how I came to these conclusions. Well, I believe prophecy unfolds as a real timeline, one continuous chain of empires, systems, and events stretching from Babylon to Medo-Persia, to Greece, to Rome, to the Papal Order, to the Papal Wound in 1798, to the healing at the Lateran Treaty signing in 1929, to the UN, Bretton Woods, and the digital empire we're watching rise right now. When Daniel or John saw visions, they were watching real sequences in time. Actually, that hadn't happened yet. The beast that was and is not and yet is makes perfect sense when I trace it through the Papal Wound, the Lateran Healing, the Balfour and Sykes-Picot, the League and the UN, the IMF, World Bank, and the World Trade Organization, Agenda 21, Agenda 30, and ESG. I mean, that's continuity, not guesswork. I mean, my interpretative order is simple. Literally, what does it actually say? Historically, where does it land in real time? Scientifically, by what mechanisms could this actually be accomplished? And symbolically, what does it mean once the first three are grounded? That order forces me to connect scripture, history, and science into one framework. The same framework I see unfolding right now. I mean, look at Daniel 7. You've got four beasts: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. A little horn grows out of Rome, which is a political, religious power. Revelation 13, a composite beast carrying Daniel's imagery forward into the Christian era. And in 1798, you have the Papal Wound. 1929, the Lateran Treaty. And then you've got the Balfour, Sykes-Picot, and the San Remo covenant by paperwork, which led to the League of Nations, which led to the United Nations. You've got Bretton Woods, IMF, World Bank, GATT and the World Trade Organization, the petrodollar financial skeleton, Rio 1992, Paris 2015, Agenda 2030, environmental and data governance. They move from swords and crowns to treaties and central banks and algorithms and carbon scores. It's the same spirit, just with a new skin. Because I believe God works through the laws he wrote into creation. So when Revelation talks about the sun darkening, or the sky rolling like a scroll, or stars falling, or even men scorched with great heat, I see, magnetosphere collapse, plasma discharges, solar outburst and ejecta, atmospheric ignition, crustal shifts and global quakes. Prophecy is divine commentary on real physical events, not supernatural intervention. I call this apocalyptic realism, because Revelation and Daniel are literal physical descriptions of the final transformation of the sun, the sky, the magnetosphere, the Earth's crust, and mankind, and all the systems that we built on top of all of that. The pale horse is the micronova. The sixth seal is the outburst, plus the quake, plus the blackout, plus the debris, plus the reversal sequence. The trumpets are the aftershocks of the post-outburst Earth. That's why I don't separate morals and material. Because when deception is global and truth is rejected, creation groans. So when sin ripens, the earth itself convulses. The heavens and the earth move in sync with the spiritual state of humanity. That's the core of my biblical realism. Spiritual realities manifest in the physical world, because this is true. You only get two options. One, a connection with the divine, or two, divine knowledge without obedience. Humanity has always chased option two, the Luciferian option, power without surrender. And you are free to choose, but you are not free from the consequences of that choice. You either listen and prepare, or you scoff and don't. Either way, you will still meet the same restoration by fire. The pale horse is the micronova event. EM pulse, blinding radiation, magnetosphere collapse in the first minutes, global quakes, blackout, atmospheric upheaval as the shock propagates. Then the ejecta storm hits, the burning, the reshaping of the land and sea. It's the great reset that they've been so desperately chasing, but not the one they wanted. Because this is not random destruction. It's reset and renewal. As it was in the days of Noah was not a metaphor. Jesus meant exactly what he said. We are approaching the same reset, only this time the world is wired, tagged, digitized, and arrogant enough to believe it can ride out the storm and come out on top on the other side. But guess what? We've read the book of Revelation. It won't. At the end of the day, the pale horse isn't just a symbol in a story. It's the culmination of a cycle we can see in the past, and if we're paying attention, we can see forming in our future. Whether you're looking at this as prophecy or as a repeating pattern of natural law, the call is the exact same. Stay awake, stay aware, stay ready, but most importantly, stay grounded in truth.
Everyone kind of feels like something is coming. Nobody has the slightest clue how big a risk we're facing, how we are due for it, it is already happening, how it's going to happen in our lives, in our children's lives. It's the most important thing almost nobody's talking about.
If you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. If you make it, you still might survive it, but at least you got a chance. And throughout history, that's all human beings ever needed.
It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine.
The average high school graduate reads at a 6th grade level. You have basketball players making $30 million a year decrying racism, all while wearing sneakers made from slave labor. Now, here's something for you. Right now, your world currently has 40 million slaves. More than the Romans had at the height of their empire. You want to know the best part, though? Half of those, are sex slaves. Okay? As for hate speech, well, you want to hear some irony? We didn't even come up with that one. You did it all by yourself. Sometimes you amaze even us. Bottom line is you're done. It's over, that's it. And we did it all right to your face, James. And now there's evil everywhere. And no one even cares, proving that we achieved our goal. Slowly, with your movies, your TV, and your media, we desensitized you, redirected your worldview to the point that you can't even recognize evil when it's right in front of your face. More to the point, James, you can't even feel it when you're doing it. And as for winners and losers, well, that gets decided at the time of death. The exact numbers are a closely guarded secret, but there are more of you ending up in my master's house than with the enemy. A lot more, Jimmy. For years without measure, that's all there ever was. Heaven and hell, armed enemy camps in complete opposition. Your creation was nothing but a slap in our face. But my master also understood that if he could make man disobey, then his fate would mirror ours. And you didn't disappoint. Then came the tares among the wheat. In that moment, spirit became matter, flesh became a vessel. Self-will and self-seeking began a lusting after sin and impurity. And man, created to be king over nature, became its slave. A master, conquered and fettered. And sin brought him and his descendants to us. And we began our forever mission to destroy you. He made you in his image, but we remade you in ours. My master designed every tool imaginable to destroy every facet of the enemy's creation. We failed because of the carpenter. He was the thorn in our side, our greatest threat. We thought if we could eliminate him, the world would be ours forever. We had no idea of the consequences. The cross was our greatest mistake. And we thought we'd lost, James. Until my master realized that man still wants to be his own God. Do what thou wilt. That shall be the whole of the law. The Creator creates, and we destroy, and we do all of it through you. We always have. Did you forget your history, Jimmy? Even in ancient times, the archdemon Moloch was celebrated by tossing infants into flaming bonfires, accompanied, of course, by the beating of drums to drown out the screaming. Later on, they erected a giant bronze statue with outstretched arms, kindling fires beneath the palms. And when they toss a little infant into those open palms, they'd flinch at the red-hot metal, but then they'd willingly roll themselves off into the flames.
What does any of that have to do with me? Oh, nothing, James.
Especially since the priests now wear surgical scrubs. The killing takes place in the wombs. There's no screaming to be heard anyway. And the remains are tossed into gas-fired crematoriums. No, James, no.
transform. Because that's what we do, James. You and us. We do that together.
Because when Jesus spoke to the 12 shortly before his arrest, he described what the future was going to look like.
Artificial intelligence. Exactly. And robots look at things like gene editing. Exactly. You know, opening a whole new horizon for medical science.
And you see, the difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
Yeah. And offers certain kinds of possibilities that have to be careful about. You know, when you began to do that kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human.
That's the problem. Of course, the new industrial revolution offers us many opportunities, but it raises manifold questions on the ethical, but even legal implications, and we have to be prepared for it.
So I want to talk to you today about the future of our species, and really the future of life. We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. Within a century or two, Earth will be dominated by entities that are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals or from chimpanzees. Because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. These will be the main products of the economy, of the 21st century economy. Not textiles and vehicles and weapons, but bodies and brains and minds. Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Those who control the data control the future not just of humanity, but the future of life itself. Because today, data is the most important asset in the world. Now, why is data so important? It's important because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. There is a lot of talk these days about hacking computers and email accounts and bank accounts and mobile phones, but actually we are gaining the ability to hack human beings. Biological knowledge multiplied by computing power, multiplied by data, equals the ability to hack humans.
The human race is at a critical point.
Al final, de lo que se trata es de organizar una gran entidad o varias entidades supranacionales que sean las que dicten el nuevo orden de cosas, el nuevo orden mundial.
Have no doubt, you are living the most important moments of your life.